Hare Krishna, Dandavat, all devotees. Dandavat Ananga Manjari, Shamananda Sakirati, Madhavi, Saragrahi, Krishna Kumari, and Carolina. Nice to see you here again. And happy Gaura Purnima for those of you who are celebrating today. Can you hear me, Ananga Manjari? All right. Okay, good. Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Umagyanati Minandasya Gyanangyana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Siddhantotpala Nitya-rasikam hamsam vilasatmakam Audaryakya sudhama seva kadanam vishrama bhakti pradam Yachna yukti vichakshanam dvagabido vaishishta shaktya sada Vandeham tripurarina makhayatim Shri Bhakti Vedantam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratvishe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Taptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Panchatatvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Svarupakam Bhaktavatara Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasri Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Bhakti Valam Kalo Nastyeva Gatiranyatha. So again, welcome everyone. Welcome also Chaitanya Charan, who joined since we just started 1 second ago. And welcome to the third part of this Parikrama of the Holy Land of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Dev. Today we're doing Parikrama of Sri Mayapur. Mayapur, of course, is the Antardvipa, or the inner island, the whirl of the lotus of the 9 islands of Navadvipa. Antardvipa stands for Atmanivedanam, or offering the very self to the Lord. This, of course, is the 9th of the 9 processes of Bhakti, Navadha Bhakti. It's also the most esoteric one. It's the most difficult one. Kirtana, Shravana, all of these things we can do while still keeping something for ourselves. Yesterday, for example, Guru Maharaj gave a beautiful talk. I'm sure many of you heard that talk, a long talk. It was almost like a 2-hour lecture. I was listening to it, trying to catch on to whatever he was saying, Guru Maharaj. At the same time, I was worrying, how long will this talk go on? So I wasn't able to completely put my mind on the talk. We had a guest, and I was worried that this guest would get nervous or something. It was maybe her 2nd or 3rd time in our house, and then there was such a long lecture, and I was worrying about this. So I was listening, but I wasn't putting my whole self into the hearing. Atmanivedanam, offering one's very self, means giving oneself completely, like the gopis are doing. Not saving anything for oneself. No thoughts about whether this talk is too long or too short, or whether this is good or bad. Just completely surrendering oneself. And this is what Sri Mayapur Dham stands for. Complete self-surrender. Today, we're going to walk down Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Marg in Mayapur. We will start from Chaitanya Mat, and then we will walk down to Yoga Peeth and beyond. And we will see on the way examples of great souls who embody this ideal of Atmanivedanam, or offering their very self. Those of you who took part in the Parikrama last week, you noticed that when visiting Koladvip, Navadvip town, it was like walking through the history of our particular parampara. Guru Maharaj was there, Sridhar Maharaj was there, Prabhupada was there, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj was there, Jagannath Das Babaji was there, Bhakti Vinod. Today, we will have the same experience. We will meet some of these great souls of our Guru Parampara. So put on your best sandals and join me for Parikrama. So today we are going on Parikrama to Mayapur. Sri Mayapur Dham. Sri Mayapur Dham ki Jai. And we will begin at the place that you can see in the picture here. This is Sri Chaitanya Mat. This place has many names. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati called it Vrajapattana, which means the place of Vraja, because he believed and he felt it in his bhajan that this is Abhinna Sri Vrindavan. This is non-different from Sri Vrindavan. Everything in Sri Vrindavan you can find here in Vrajapattana. This place is also called Mashirbari, or the maternal uncle's house, because this is where Mahaprabhu's uncle used to live, his mother's brother, his maternal uncle, Chandrasekhar Acharya, also called Acharya Ratna. This is the place of his house, Chandrasekhar Acharya. So there are some wonderful leelas that took place in this very house, particularly the leela that you can read about in Chaitanya Bhagavat, about when Mahaprabhu put on a drama and dressed up as Rukmini and so on. So this is a wonderful leela that happened in this very place. This place, Chaitanya Mat, is also called Akara Matharaja, or the undivided king of all mathas. In the Gaudiya Math tradition, when we say Jayadvani, Jai, 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 all these things, one of the Jais is Akara Mataraj Sri Chaitanya Mat ki Jai. That is when we are saying Jai to this place, the king of all mathas, the undivided king of all mathas, because this is the place where Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati began his preaching mission. So all the other mathas, the mathas all over India, abroad, all the different missions, all the different movements and temples, they are all directly or indirectly branches of this Mayapur Sri Chaitanya Mat. So let's go inside and have a darshan of some of the beautiful things that we can find in this place. Here we meet immediately the Acharya, Sanyasi Maharaj. It's interesting that the Acharyas of both of the main branches of the Gaudiya Mat today, the Chaitanya Mat, which we're visiting today, and the Gaudiya Mission with headquarters in Bagh Bazar. Their Acharyas are both called Sanyasi Maharaj. One is Bhaktisiddhanta Sanyasi Maharaj, the other one, the Maharaj here, I don't remember his first name, but they're both Sanyasi Maharaj. Here he is carrying Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's shoes on his head as part of the procession here with many other sannyasis. This is a big mat. There are many sannyasis here, many brahmacharis. And today, on this day, which here in India that we are, is still not Gaura Purnima. Gaura Purnima is tomorrow. So many pilgrims are visiting. So we offer our dandavats to all the sannyasis here and all the other devotees. And we go further in to see some of the places. And just here is Gorkishore Das Babaji Maharaj. Of course, is the guru of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. His Samadhi, we heard last time, was first on the other side of the river, but then when there was a flood, Bhaktisiddhanta's disciples brought the Samadhi here. And it's quite interesting that his Samadhi is here at Chaitanya Mat. This is the place where Bhaktisiddhanta came to do bhajan during the lifetime of his father, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Bhaktivinoda Thakur's order for Bhaktisiddhanta was to develop Sri Mayapur and to also do bhajan here. So Bhaktisiddhanta, he took a vow to chant 1 billion names of the Lord. So for 9 years, he sat in this place, which he identified as identical with Sri Vrindavan Dham, and did Harinam from morning to evening for 9 years. So many rounds every day. But then he got up from this chanting. Gorkishore Das Babaji had been very happy with his bhajan. And he was very happy himself. But he started to get disciples. And in the year 1918, one of his first disciples, his name was Kunja Bihari Das, Kunja Bihari Vidyabhushan. He told him that all of the things that you have, Prabhupada, Gurudev, you should share them with the world. And Bhaktisiddhanta, he was not sure about this from the beginning. His guru had wanted him to do bhajan here by himself. But eventually his disciple, Kunja Bihari Das, convinced him to start the preaching movement. Kunja Bihari later on got the name Prabhupada Preshta, the one who was the dearest to Prabhupada. He was in many ways, his closest disciple, and also the one who took over after him as the Acharya of the Chaitanya Mat. And when Bhaktisiddhanta decided to start this preaching movement, he also took sannyas initiation in this place here, in Chaitanya Mat. Who was his sannyas guru? Anangamanjari, do you know? It's a trick question because he didn't have a sannyasi guru. He took sannyas from the picture of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Bhaktivinoda Thakur had already passed away by then. He didn't have any godbrothers. His guru had passed away. So he, in a very special and exceptional way, he took sannyas by himself. And since then, he was known as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Here at Chaitanya Mat, there are beautiful gardens. We can see some of them here. And here we will also find the Samadhi temple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So Chaitanya Math is the place where he started his preaching mission. And it's also the place where he was put to rest after the mission was over. So let's go and have darshan of our lion guru, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. His Samadhi is here in the building you saw in the previous picture. This is very much where his heart was from the beginning to the end. He went other places. He went to Kolkata. He traveled all around India. He had plans even to go to the West, to go to America. Very dynamic in so many different ways. But his heart was here at Chaitanya Math. This is where he had done his intensive bhajan in his youth, and where he would always come back. And his disciples then brought him here for his final samadhi. This is also the place of Bhaktisiddhanta's favorite deities. All acharyas have their favorite deities. There's this one song, maybe you have sung, Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhi Bhakti Vinoder Pranadana He. And then when you come to Bhaktisiddhanta, Jayo Gandharvika Giridhari Gandharvika Giridhari Gandharvika Giridhari Radhe Prabhupada Pranadana He. So this is Mahaprabhu Gandharvika Giridhari. Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta, he liked this name Gandharvika for Radha. Gandharvika is the Shruti name, the Upanishadic name for Radha. This is the name of Radha of the Gopala Tapani Upanishad that our Guru Maharaj has translated. So it's a name that when we read the text, we'll see it's a very intimate name, but it's also kind of a majestic name. Gandharvika, the angel-like lady. And Giridhari, of course, is the lifter of the hill of Govardhana. So here are these Srimurtis. You can see the style is similar like in other Gaudiya Math temples, but a little bit different. If you're interested in iconography, in the way deities look, you'll see that they change a little bit. Today, you wouldn't have deities who would look exactly like this. But here are Gandharvika Giridhari, and we offer our dandavats, we give a donation, and we have a look at the other things here, because Bhaktisiddhanta made a very special temple here. Not only is here Mahaprabhu Gandharvika Giridhari, but here we also find the 4 Vaishnava Acharyas. In this picture here, or here we can see Madhva Acharya. He's holding up 2 fingers like this. Shankara is shown like this quite often. Ekam eva dvitiyam. 1, not 2. Madhva Acharya is shown 2. There's always a difference between the Jiva and Brahman or God. But here in the temple, there are the 4 Vaishnava Acharyas, Madhva, Ramanuja, Vishnu Swami, and Nimbarka. Bhaktisiddhanta had a very strong vision about this. All the different Vaishnava Acharyas, they belong together. They have different opinions on so many things, but we should see ourselves as belonging to the same transcendental tradition of Vaishnavism. Not just focus on the differences, but focus on what unites us, our love and devotion for Vishnu and Krishna in all of the different forms. So we pay our obeisances to the Vaishnava Acharyas, and we go outside, because outside here are 2 kunds, And I'm sure you could guess what these two kunds are. They are Radhakund and Shyamakund. Again, Bhaktisiddhanta, he saw Vrindavan as being non-different from this area, Vrajapattan. So he saw Radhakund and Shyamakund here. And he also saw Giri Govardhan. He had his disciples bring Shilas from Govardhan in Vrindavan. And they made another Govardhan hill here. For example, if Shamananda is feeling a little bit lazy and he doesn't want to do the whole 20 kilometers Govardhana Parikrama in Govardhan, he can come with me. I'm also a lazy man. He can come with me here to Mayapur, Sri Chaitanya Mat, and we can do Parikrama here of Govardhan. It will just take us 20 seconds to do a whole lap around Govardhan. So Bhaktisiddhanta, he very explicitly created a replica of Vrindavan here at Chaitanya Mat. From Chaitanya Mat, we will go out through the main gate and continue down Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Marg. Originally, there was almost nothing here in Mayapur. But gradually, on the sides of this road, so many mats have sprung up. Here around Chaitanya Mat, there are not so many other mats, but further down, we'll be walking towards the south today. Further down, there will be many, many mats. Most of the different mats belong to the disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Because as we know, after a great Acharya passes away, there's often a conflict that follows in the wake of that. And the movement began by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was first split into two parts, and later on, many, many different parts. And in a way, this is disappointing because the unified preaching movement ceased to exist. But from Krishna's perspective and from a larger perspective, this is extremely good news because this means that the sum total of the preaching will grow. Instead of just having one big Acharya, we have many Acharyas, and they all make their own temples, they all have their own disciples. So the preaching actually has grown hugely since the time of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. There are so many Gaudiya mats. Here along Bhaktisiddhanta Marg, I think there's about 30 different Gaudiya mats. And many of them are quite small, but some of them are huge, like Chaitanya Mat that we have just visited. To Chaitanya Mat belongs also the place that we will visit now, Shiva's Angan. Shiva's Angan is, of course, the house of Shiva's Thakur. This is one of the most important Leela Stalis of the whole area, one of the most important pastime places. Here at Shiva's Angan is where Mahaprabhu really began his preaching mission. This is after he came back from Gaya, when he had been transformed from being this puffed up Brahminical scholar into becoming an ecstatic devotee of the Lord. This is where he would meet his associates, Srivas Thakur and others, and hold these nocturnal kirtans. So at this place, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and his followers have erected temples, altars, and have programs. Here on the altar, we can see dancing devotees and also a mridanga. But what kind of a mridanga is this? Saragrahi, what kind of a mridanga is this? Okay, she can't unmute, but she's saying correctly. This is the mridanga that the Kashi had broken. It's a broken mridanga. If you look carefully on it, you see it's broken. This is the Koler Bhanga Stan, the place of the broken Mridanga. And this Leela, of course, we may remember from Chaitanya Bhagavat or Chaitanya Charitamrita, when the Qazi, the Muslim magistrate of Navadvip, when he got tired of the kirtans of the devotees, he broke the Mridanga. Or maybe not personally, but he had some of his soldiers come and break the Mridanga. Trying to show to the devotees that now you have to shut up and stop this banging and clinging in the nights. Of course, that's not how the devotees took it. They took it as a challenge. So Mahaprabhu, he organized a huge Sankirtan procession. And they all went up to the north from here to the Kashi's house. It's described quite differently in Chaitanya Bhagavat and Chaitanya Charitamrita. The description in the Chaitanya Charitamrita is very peaceful. They have a beautiful kirtan, they come up there and they hold a nice discussion with the Qazi. And finally he says, okay, I will not hinder the Sankirtan anymore, which is true. He never did, and his descendants also have never done so. In the Chaitanya Bhagavat, the description is much more martial, much more heavy. They go up there and they are prepared to burn down the Kashi's house and they trash his garden. It's quite interesting how different the description is there. But the end result, of course, is the same. The Kashi backs down. He takes back this order of stopping the kirtan. And from here, then the kirtan, the Sankirtan movement, it grows and becomes more strong day after day. Shiva Sangan is also the place of the Mahaprakasha Leela. This is one of the central Leelas in in Chaitanya Charitamrita. It would be the Adi Leela, Chaitanya Bhagavat, the Madhya Khanda. The Leela when Mahaprabhu reveals himself in a great way, Mahaprakasha. So he sits on the throne of the deity and he asks all the devotees to come in front of him, one after the other. And he shows them that he is the Lord himself. So he reveals himself according to the mood of the devotee. To Murari Gupta, he shows himself as Ramchandra. He shows himself as Nrisingadev, to Nishingananda Brahmachari, and so on. So he shows that within him are all the forms of the Lord, because he is Swayam Bhagavan himself. He's the Lord himself. This Mahaprakasha Leela also took place in this Shiva's Angan. So we remember this Leela here as well. Again, we pay our dandavats and we go on. So we continue down the road from Shiva's Angan. Gaura Purnima is just around the corner. So there are so many different Parikrama parties going around the area. Our party is quite small. But here are huge parties as well. This is the Gaudiya Mission Parikrama party. Thousands of devotees. We offer our obeisances. We go a little bit to the side of the road. We don't want to hinder these big devotees. But we also feel part of it. We're different. We belong to a little bit different group, but we're all part of the larger family of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And that's something that is so beautiful here in Mayapur. Everybody belongs to the same family, the same extended family. These are all our uncles, our cousins, our brothers. So we pay our obeisances. We say, Hari Bol, Jai, and we continue on. And we come to the Adbhuta Mandira, the wonderful temple. Do you remember the first parikrama we did 2 weeks ago? I mentioned how Bhaktivinoda Thakur was standing on the roof of the Rani Dharmashala in Kulia, on the other side of the river, And he saw this golden temple shining in the night up there in the north in Mayapur. This is that temple that manifested, and after his passing, this is the temple of the Yoga Pitha, or the place of union. This is the majestic temple that has been seen by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and also foreseen by other acharyas before. One day there will be a beautiful temple in this area commemorating Mahaprabhu's birthplace. So this is the Yoga Pit. Here we see Gaura Kund in front of it. There's also the Bhaktivinoda Institute here, a school. But let's go in and see more closely all the wonderful things here at Yoga Pit. Here we see, of course, the neem tree under which Mahaprabhu was born. The place is chock full of pilgrims today because it's the Adhivas day of Gaura Purnima. Gaura Purnima is tomorrow, so everybody's preparing for Gaura Purnima. Pilgrims are visiting the tree, and behind the tree here, there's a small shrine or a small temple with murtis of Shachimata and Jagannath Mishra and little Nimai. So we will pay our obeisances to the tree and then to this little shrine. It has lap. So this is the place of Mahaprabhu's appearance. When Mahaprabhu appeared in this world 536 years ago, tomorrow, a little bit more than half a millennia ago, so many things have changed in the world. And of course, we will hear more classes. Guru Maharaj will give a class on Gaura Purnima today. He's going to speak about all the tattva, all the Siddhanta about Mahaprabhu's different reasons for why Krishna chose to come into this world again. I will not try to speak about such high-end and esoteric things today. I just want you to see and experience these beautiful places. To hear the sound of the kirtan, all the devotees chanting Jai Sachinandana, Jai Sachinandana, Jai Sachinandana, Gaura Hari. Feel the smell of the incense, feel the rush of the people, all the different devotees of different nationalities, different colors and races, all the devotees meeting here to celebrate Nimai Pandit's birth. So let's go inside the temple itself. There are 3 altars here. There's the altar of the Panchatatwa. Here are the Panchatatva, and Jagannath as well, and also Mahaprabhu separately. So there's like double Mahaprabhu and then the rest of the Panchatatva. Bhaktivinoda, he had this vision of the Yoga Pit. The temple that we are inside now was actually built after Bhaktivinoda's lifetime by the king of Tripura under Bhaktisiddhanta's guidance. But the deities were installed already in Bhaktivinoda's time in a smaller temple that was here before this Adbhuta Mandira. So Bhaktivinoda had this vision. There would be Panchatatva, and then in the middle, Mahaprabhu and Lakshmi Priya and Vishnu Priya. So Mahaprabhu and his 2 Shaktis. In the middle there, below, you can see the Adhoc Vishnu Deity that I spoke about during the first Parikrama. This deity that had belonged to Jagannath Mishra and Shachimata, and that was found when the Yoga Pit temple was built. This is a very special temple. I'm not sure if there are any other temples with Mahaprabhu and his 2 Shaktis like this. There's a third altar as well with Gaur Gadadhar. And Madhavi, can you guess who is on the right side? Gaur Gadadhar is on the left. Who is on the right side? Can you guess Madhavi Dasi? I couldn't hear, but maybe you said no. But it's Lakshmi Nishinga. Lakshmi Nishinga. Nishinga is also described as being blue sometimes. We're more accustomed to seeing Nishinga as being yellow or like the color of a lion, but sometimes he's described as being blue. And this is one example of that. So Lakshmi Nishinga. And the reason of that is that Mahaprabhu's parents worshipped Lakshmi Nishinga. So Lakshmi Nishinga ki jai, Gaur Gadadhar ki jai, Mahaprabhu Lakshmi Vishnu Priya ki jai, Panchatatwa ki jai. So many devotees are here. New Parikrama groups are coming all the time. Kirtan is swelling and growing and becoming bigger. Can you hear the sound of the 10 mridangas? Tudum, 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 all the karatals going on. The ulu sound of the Bengali ladies. This whole festival of Kirtan. Sometimes then the devotees come down. They sit down here in this big hall. The altars are behind us now. And then somebody is giving class. Usually the classes are in Bengali. This is Bengal after all. We don't maybe understand everything, but we can understand at least the bhav. We can feel the devotion of the speakers and the listeners. So we will not stay to listen to the class because we'll not understand so much. But again, we offer our obeisances. When we're doing parikrama like this, we're offering so many obeisances again and again and again. Our clothes are getting dirty, our foreheads are getting dusty. We don't mind it at all. This is the dust of the holy dham. The more dusty, the more dirty we can become, the better. So we continue down the road. There are many mats here, ordinary houses as well. Lots of ordinary people have moved here. This is what always happens when a pilgrimage place is developed. Temples will spring up, monasteries, holy places, but also ordinary people who will take the chance to live close to the holy place for the sake of the holiness, also for the sake of the money. Because when pilgrims come, they will need food, they will need lodging. So there are plenty of hotels here in Mayapur. Holy people, sinful people. There are brothels here. There are gambling places. All the good things you can imagine in the world. Also some of the bad things. This is important for us as pilgrims. When we visit a holy place, we need to learn also to sometimes shut our eyes. It's not our mission as pilgrims to make a cleanup of the holy dham, to find out who is holy, who is sinful. This is the outer covering of the dham. There will always be some dirt on the outer covering, just like in the Ganges River, there might be bubbles and dirt floating on the surface, but still it's pure, still it's holy. The same with the holy dham. We may not always understand everything. We may see some things that don't look so holy, that don't look so good. It's not our job to judge. We just say, Hare Krishna, and we go on. And we come to our final stop for today, to the Mayapur Chandrodaya Mandir. This is the headquarter of Iskcon, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, which is a wonderful place and a wonderful movement. This is the place where our Guru Maharaj spent so much time together with Srila Prabhupada. This is the place that Prabhupada felt to be his place of bhajan, his place of internal meditation. So this is a very holy place for us. And we'll go inside and have a look. Just like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati has his Samadhi up in Sri Chaitanya Mat, Brajapattana, Prabhupada, our Prabhupada, has his Samadhi here in Mayapur. It's a huge building. It's much larger than the Samadhi of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's Samadhi is larger than the Samadhi of Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. So what's going on here? Does this say that Prabhupada Bhaktivedanta Swami was a greater guru than Bhaktisiddhanta, and Bhaktisiddhanta was a greater guru than Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj? Not necessarily. But it says something about the spread of Krishna consciousness. Bhaktisiddhanta reached so many different people, and so many people felt after his passing that they wanted to celebrate his life by making a monument in his memory. Similarly with Prabhupada, so many people were touched by his preaching. Not necessarily because he was a greater devotee or deeper devotee or anything like that. That we can't judge, that we can't know. These are all great devotees. These are all participants in the eternal Leela of Shri Radha and Krishna. So we're not thinking like this, that Bhaktisiddhanta is greater than Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, or Babaji Maharaj is greater than Bhaktivinoda, or anything like that. But disciples sometimes feel the need to worship and glorify their own gurus. And Prabhupada had so many disciples. He had so many disciples. And he founded this huge movement that is still thriving today, and which has brought so many people here to Mayapur. Many of us have come to Krishna consciousness through the work of the devotees of Iskcon. Many of us first came into contact with Krishna consciousness through this movement. And even if we didn't, we came into contact with Krishna consciousness through devotees that, for their part, had come in contact with Krishna consciousness through Iskcon. So we may not be formally members of Iskcon, but we are in many ways indebted to Iskcon and indebted to the preaching movement of Srila Prabhupada. So for all of us to visit his Samadhi here is a wonderful experience. It's visiting the Samadhi of our grandfather. We can think like this. He's our grandfather. Bhaktisiddhanta is our great-grandfather. This is our grandfather. And all the wonderful achievements that he did, we can feel proud of. Our Prabhupada founded 108 temples around the world. So, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. This Mayapur, Iskcon Mayapur, is a wonderful place. It's compared to all the other Vaishnava movements in the world, it's like 1 million times larger than all of the others. Now, the main project here in Iskcon Mayapur is building the Mayapur Chandrodaya Mandir. Do you see this small little temple here where the pointer is on the left side of the big building here in the middle? This is Prabhupada's Samadhi, and it's huge. But compared to this temple that they are building, and it's not yet finished, it will be finished in a few more years. It's tiny. So the temple they are making, maybe the architecture is not to everybody's liking. People will always have different opinions. But it's massive. And it's beautiful. Already now, it's not yet finished, but it's beautiful and it's extremely attractive to the local people. After all, we should never think that the Dham is for us. We are visitors to the Dham. The temples of the Dham, they are not built for us. We are Mlechas and Yavanas. We are lucky to visit these places. It's not our right to visit. It's a privilege. If we like the temples, that's fine. That's a sign of our having some taste for Krishna consciousness. But they are not built for us. So we should never judge and think that, I like this temple, I don't like that temple. We should try not to think like that. But what can be said is that this temple has already become a huge thing in India, and especially in the part that we are in now in West Bengal. Thousands and thousands of ordinary people come to visit this temple every single day, not just on festivals like Gaura Purnima, but every single day, thousands and thousands of people. And they go away with a deepened feeling for Mahaprabhu, for the Mahamantra, for Krishna Prasad. So it's again, like Bhaktisiddhanta's mission from the beginning, this is a preaching mission. So the devotees here in Iskcon Mayapur, they are doing huge preaching in India, and very successful preaching. With every preaching, of course, some mistakes might happen, but we don't care about that. We see all the good that they are doing and all the massive things they're doing on a scale that nobody could have envisioned before. The main deities here are Panchatatwa. Panchatatva ki jai. We saw Panchatatva at Yogapith. Here we see a different style of Panchatatva, completely different style of Sri Murtis. These are not life-size Murtis. These are bigger than life-size, huge Murtis made of Ashtadhatu that are still in another temple building. They are not in the new temple yet, because the new temple is not yet finished. But in another temple building, worshipped in a gorgeous way every day. But the main deities are Radha Madhava and Astasakhis. This is also a unique altar with larger than life Radha Madhava being the favorite deities of Srila Prabhupada, and then the Astasakhis, the 8 most important friends of Radha surrounding them. So this is a very beautiful and very intimate understanding of Radha Krishna, surrounded by their Sakhis in this way. And the worship here is of extremely high standard. In fact, the style of worship of Iskcon has in India become kind of trend setting within the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. All the other Gaudiya Vaishnava movements, they try to attain the same kind of deity worship standard as Iskcon has. This is an amazing thing that Iskcon has done in India. They have raised the standard of deity worship everywhere. So Radha Madhava ki jai, Astasakhis ki jai. It's time for us to slowly return to our lodgings. It's already evening. We've been visiting all these sacred places. But this Iskcon Mayapur is an amazing place, and there's always something going on. It's an amazing place because it's a mix between very intimate, very esoteric worship, like we saw Radha Madhava and Astasakhis, but then also this kind of Vaikuntha style of very elaborate, fancy Vaidhi Bhakti. This may not be our style. We may have a different feeling for Krishna consciousness. That's all right. But I'm sure we can all appreciate the things going on here, like these elephant parades, brahmacharis standing on the elephants with their chamaras. I'm scared that one will fall off and die, but of course it never happens. Elaborate Vedic chanting, ghee lamps flaming in the night, the sound of conches, the sound of horns and bugles and drums. It's like we've stepped into Vaikuntha Loka, and it really lifts the spirit. It lifts the spirit. We've been walking around all day and we're a little bit tired, but now here in this association, we feel ourselves lifted up, liberated from this world of birth and death. And from here, of course, we can go on even higher. From Vaikuntha, we can go even higher. We can go to Nitya Navadvipa, to the eternal, intimate pastimes of Mahaprabhu and his associates. Those pastimes that we already glimpsed at Shiva Sangan and Yoga Pit and Chaitanya Mat. But sometimes we need to go through Vaikuntha to be purified and to be lifted up from our ordinary life. So we offer our obeisances here again. And we say, good night, dear devotees. And then we continue on to our lodgings to prepare for tomorrow's Gora Purnima festival. So any questions or comments this time? Otherwise, I have a comment for Guru Nishta. Are you there?
Very well. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You owe me one basket of kombucha.
I'm very impressed that you actually went through that class. It was painful to give it, what to speak of listening to it. So my dandavat to you.
It was one of the Jaiva Dharma classes, for those of you who haven't heard them. There were many interruptions because of the internet. It wasn't painful to listen to at all. It was pure nectar from beginning to end. And like somebody said at the end of that class, the interruptions just made you kind of stop to think and kind of try to take in whatever had been said. So I enjoyed it very much, as I have enjoyed all of your other classes as well. I haven't finished all the Jaiva Dharmas yet, but I'm slow with the classes. I'm listening to Shamananda's classes also now, and Hari Priya's classes, but I'm behind schedule. But I really like your classes.
Thank you. I want to say one thing about this is the first one of the Navadvip Parikramas I saw, and it had exactly the effect I'm thinking that you wanted. It's like immediate, like we have to organize this thing in real life with Guru Maharaj and the whole group. I mean, seriously, seeing those photos of these like thousands of devotees and all the temples, it's so inspiring to me. We have to do it, hopefully within a couple of years.
I agree.
But that's all. Thank you so much for this class today.
Thank you.
Haribol. Pranams, and thank you for the tour today. I was wondering if, because you mentioned Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur sitting down for bhajan for 9 years and then getting up and starting to preach. And there is a story that there was a verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita coming in the air. And do you know the details of that? Okay.
No, please tell us the story.
No, I was wondering if because I heard there was a piece of paper, and this is what I read from Srila Maharaj. It was a piece of paper coming in the wind with a verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita, and I was just wondering if it was like a palm leaf or if it was an actual piece of paper. But yeah.
Yeah, there are many stories like that, like devotees. There's a story of, I forget who it was, but a piece of paper flying by, and then devotee picking it up, and it said something like I can't remember the Bengali now, but the purport is the sign of a devotee is giving up bad association. So that devotee immediately then gave up his family life and everything and went to Vrindavan. So I would be very scared if I would find a paper like that.
So if you see any flying papers, just let them pass.
Let it fly.
But that's just because I'm not this kind of devotee like the devotees we hear about today, devotees who are able to offer their whole self, Atma Nivedanam. I want to keep 95% for myself, and Krishna can have 5%. But superlative devotees, they think their mathematics is different. So when they see something like this, they will feel that this is actually speaking to me. It's not a coincidence. It's not just somebody who dropped a piece of paper. It's Krishna speaking to me. And of course, this is something that we should practice and try to see around us. Sometimes it's said that the sign of a child, a person who doesn't have a very developed intelligence, is to see the world kind of spinning around you. Like a child, if let's say a book falls down or something like that, the child will think that, oh, that's a message for me, because the child doesn't have yet the big picture of understanding that lots of things are going on in the world and you're just a small person. But in a way, a devotee is childish. A devotee is trying to see that the world is speaking to me. All the different things in the world are speaking to me. Like Mahaprabhu, he hears the grass saying, be more humble than a blade of grass. He hears the trees saying, be more tolerant than a tree. So the whole world is speaking to him. Similarly, a devotee will understand on one level that there are things like chances and chance meetings and so on. But still the devotee will try to see Krishna's hand behind everything. That from one perspective, it's just a chance, but from another perspective, this is trying to tell me something. So we may not be like Bhaktisiddhanta, being able to start a preaching mission because of some words that we hear or read on a piece of paper, but we should practice this to try to see Krishna behind everything. Yeah, this is something we could speak a lot about, but I think that's enough for today. So, dear devotees,
I have one more question.
Yes.
Can I ask one? Yeah, you mentioned that Vrindavan Das Thakur and Krishnadas Kaviraj, they described the Chand Kasi episode very differently. And I've also thought about that. And what do you think? Why is it that it's so different?
Well, I think it's connected with many different things. And one is that they have completely different kind of relationships to Mahaprabhu. Vrindavan Das, he sees Mahaprabhu as the king of Vaikuntha. Mahaprabhu is the king of Vaikuntha in Chaitanya Bhagavat. He's majestic. He's not Krishna with the mood of Radha. Vrindavan Das says nothing like that. For him, Mahaprabhu is the Lord of Vaikuntha. He is this majestic being who has come down on earth. So this is reflected also in how he views many of the Leelas. There's lots of majesty, there's lots of awe and reverence. This kind of Aishwarya or majesty. So in the Chandkasi Leela, we see this as well, that he's demonstrating his majesty. Similarly, in the Jai and the Jagai and Madhai Leela, he's calling for his chakra and things like this. So I think it's this difference is mainly to do with different moods, different ways in which to see Mahaprabhu Shri Krishna Chaitanya.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, usually in murtis of Narasimhadev, Prahlad is not usually there in the murti. It's actually very seldom that we have a murti which has Jiva Tattva and Ishvara Tattva in the same murti. Usually you will have Radha Krishna, Vishnu, Lakshmi, Sitaram, and so on. But to have Krishna and a devotee in the same murti, that's uncommon. Of course, there are Prahlad Nishinga deities in Iskcon, but outside of Iskcon, we don't really see them. Also, from the iconographic perspective, if you have a murti of Narasimhadev, which is like this high, then Prahlad should be like the size of an ant or something like that. So it's difficult to make a murti according to the specifications of the Shilpa Shastra. So the murtis that we see of Prahlad Nishinga, they are modified. They are not exactly according to the instructions in the Shastras. So it's not so common with Prahlad Nishinga. And especially when there's a murti of Lakshmi Nishinga, then Prahlad will not be in the same murti. Because those are two different relationships. Lakshmi and Nishinga, their relationship is very different from the relationship of Prahlad and Nishinga. Different bhavas. So combining them in one murti could easily lead to rasabhasa or conflicting emotions. Vatsalya and Madhurya, they usually don't go together. There are some exceptions in Padyavali, for example, but usually these bhavas don't go together. So again, dear devotees, thank you. Thank you for today. And if you're celebrating Gaura Purnima today, happy Gaura Purnima. Otherwise, I hope you will have a wonderful Gaura Purnima tomorrow or whenever you're celebrating. Jai Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shri Radha Madhar Mohan Radha Govinda Radha Gopanatha Radha Damadar Radha Sham Sundara Radha Damara Radha Gokulananda Radha Madhava Doji Gopal Nitai Go Shri Sharbut Giriraj Ki Jai Jai Vishnu Parvarang Sapravajaka Acharya Stotra Shatashi Shimad Bhakti Vedanta Tripurari Dev Goswami Maharaj Lagurre Ki Jai Jai Nithila Pravishna Vishnu Pad Abhay Charana Arvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Nithila Pravishna Vishnu Pad Bhakti Rakshak Shri Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Nithila Pravishna Vishnu Pad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Thakur Ki Jai Jai Gorki Jodas Pabri Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Sachidananda Thakur Bhakti Vinod ki Jai. Jai Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Shla Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki Jai. Jai Gaudiya Vedanta Acharya Shla Palini Bidibhushan Prabhu ki Jai. Jai Shla Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur ki Jai. Jai Srinivas Shamananda Narottam Prabhutra ki Jai. Jai Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Jai Vyasavata Shri Vrindavan Das Thakur Mahashai ki Jai. Jai Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhattar Ganata Shri Jiva Gopala Bhattar Asra Ganat Shargoshm Prabhu ki Jai. Jai Namacharya Shla Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Jai Rai Ramananda Hari Gaur Parshavanda ki Jai. Jai Prem Se Ghosh Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasya Shri Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. Jai Shri Mahaprabhu Mahotsava ki Jai. Shri Gaura Purnima Mahotsava ki Jai. Shri Gaura Purnima Mahotsava ki Jai. Jai Antardvip Mayapur Simantardvip Madhyadvip Koladvip Pritudvip Chanardvip Madhyadvip Modharadvimadvip Rudradvipatmaka Shri Navadvip Dham ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopiko Govardhana Dvadashavanatmaka Shri Vrindavan Dham ki Jai. Dvadashavan ki Jai. Ganga Yamuna Radha Kunda Shama Kundaya Tulsi Bhakti Devi ki Jai. Sri Shri Jagannath Puraram ki Jai. Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Sarashna ki Jai. Jai Bhakti Vigna Vinashanakari Shri Nishingade Bhagavan ki Jai. Sri Lakshmi Nishingadev ki Jai. Shri Prahlad Nishingadev ki Jai. Akara Mataraj Shri Chaitanya Mat ki Jai. Tadya Shakamatuzma ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Sangha ki Jai. Anand Gaudiya Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai. Bhuvan Mangal Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai. Jai Ananta Gaudiya Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.
Shriman Bhrigupada Prabhu ki
Jai.
Jai.
Vrinda ki